4. Got it. And just a reminder to reach out to any of us fellows for a back to school call if you haven't already, and we can help you with event ideas and just campaign plans for the year. And with that, we can start introductions for the team and for anyone on the call. So I'll get started. I'm Natalie. I'm the Western Fellow, and I'll pass it off to anyone else who'd like to introduce themselves.
I can introduce myself and maybe the Fair Trade Campaigns team can, and then if anybody else just wants to add your information in the chat, I think if we go through all of us, maybe it'll take a bit too long, but feel free to speak up if you do want to. Otherwise, you can just add it in the chat. Maybe your campaign and your campaign role as well might be helpful for folks. But we'll start with the Fair Trade Campaigns team. So my name is Taryn. I'm the Fair Trade Campaigns and Communications Coordinator. I recognize most of your names from emailing, so good to have you on the call. Thanks for joining. And I will let Anissa and Angie introduce themselves next.
So I can go next. Hi, my name is Anissa, and I am the Midwestern Fellow. Nice to meet you, everyone.
Oh, looks like Angie must be having technical difficulties, so we can just get started in the next portion. Natalie, did you have anything else that you wanted to mention before we hop in?
I believe that is all, and I believe Angelique is coming back.
Hi, I apologize. I'm having some connectivity issues. My name is Angelique, and I'm the Eastern Region Fellow. It's nice to meet everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Angie. And yeah, keep that coming in the chat. We see 2 people have put their information in. A couple of folks have put their information in. So, and feel free to add your email addresses as well if you're interested in networking a little bit deeper beyond the call, and we can add that in follow-up or just keep an eye on the chat, and hopefully you'll be able to connect with some folks and keep those conversations going after the strategy call. So just to kind of give you a rundown of what we're hoping to do for the remainder of this call, we have a really brief presentation to go over just with some ideas on partnering with dining as kind of the main goal of this call is to talk, not the main goal, but a goal of the call is to talk to you a little bit about dining services and how you can partner with them best as a college university campaign and what that could possibly look like. As most of you probably know, one of the goals to become a fair trade college or university is to source fair trade products on campus. And this can kind of be a point of contention or of difficulty as folks work through the campaigning process. So we wanted to cover that a little bit, and then we'll also cover some other early semester best practices. I'm sure most of you are probably back on campus or back in school now, which I can't even believe that it's already fall of 2022. But just some early semester best practices so that you can move forward in the best way possible with your campaign. And then finally, Angie will do just a really brief overview of our goals in case you are unfamiliar. Maybe you're new to campaigning, maybe you're a new startup or are interested in starting a campaign. So she'll go through a quick overview of the goals for anybody who's new and to kind of give you some tips on how to complete those goals in the new year if you're still in progress and wanting to complete those things. So we have a little bit of a PowerPoint that Natalie's going to share for us. And I will dive in first with the working with dining services portion. We have a working with dining guide for all of you to kind of just give some suggestions and best practices for how to successfully partner with dining services on campus. Like I said, with goal, I think it's goal number 2, being getting fair trade products on campus. It's a little bit difficult for some folks and can be a bit of a hump. So this guide is really great at giving some information on how to go about it in the best possible way. So I'll just do a quick overview of the guide, and then we will also share the resource in the chat so that you can follow along if you'd like, or look at it after the call. And we will have a follow-up email as well for all of you. So all these resources, if you do miss them in the chat, we'll go ahead and add them in an email moving forward. So don't worry too much if you miss anything. I do also want to add, sorry, after this little presentation, we'll have open discussion, Q&A, all of that good stuff, so we can do a little bit more networking and working together in that way. So diving into the Working with Dining Services guide, there are 3 sections to the guide. The first one is general tips and best practices. The second is specific information and resources for working with specific dining service providers. So the ones on the left here, Aramark, Bon Appetit, Sodexo, and Chartwells are the 4 main ones. Your campus might have an independent dining service provider. However, so at the end of the guide, there's also a case study from UC Berkeley and UCLA, who both utilize independent food service operators. So you can see a little bit about how they navigated that, which is a little bit different than how you might work with one of these big 4 that you see on the left-hand side here. For the general tips and best practices section, it goes over just kind of best practices in meeting with dining services. A lot of our college university campaigns are run by students, and it can be a little bit intimidating, especially if you're a freshman and maybe new to campus and new to just kind of being out in a new world as you leave high school. So it can be a little bit intimidating meeting with some folks in administration and working with dining services. So there are some tips here to help you move forward with just getting a meeting with them. So understand their schedule, understand who they are in dining services and who the decision makers are. Maybe you'll talk to somebody that's in the sustainability realm of dining services, but isn't really going to be able to make any big decisions in terms of sourcing or something like that. So head to their LinkedIn, look at their email bios or their email signatures and see who they are and what they actually do for dining services in order to kind of have a better idea of who you're talking to. Another great thing to do is make sure they know what fair trade is. So as you get into those meetings, just have a really short elevator pitch of what fair trade is, just in case they're unaware. So, you can talk about the social impact, the economic impact it has for farmers, the environmental impact, and things like that. And we have a lot of 101 guides on Fair Trade Campaign's resource page that you can look at and just pull information from those to help folks understand what exactly fair trade is, so that once you're in that meeting and you can kind of give them that explanation, they might get a little bit more excited and with that understanding of fair trade. There are also a lot of resources under this general tips and best practices. And finally, you can move up to the first slide still, Natalie, thank you. And then something else that's super important and kind of something you can think about as you're heading into an interview, even treat this a little bit like an interview, brainstorm some of the questions that they might come to you with before you even enter the call. So what might they say to you that you won't know the answer to? Can you Google it beforehand? Can you ask one of the fellows beforehand so that you're fully prepared in the call to answer any question they might have? And don't be afraid if they do have a question that you're unsure of the answer to just say, I'm not sure. Let me reach out to Fair Trade Campaigns and see if they have an answer for you. Or let me reach out to, if you have an advisor on campus or something like that and see if they can help you with that. Don't be afraid to not know the answer, but brainstorm some questions beforehand so that when they do ask you, you feel a little bit more prepared and aren't caught off guard in any way. There are a couple more tips on here that you can read, work on changing their perceptions if they're not interested in doing fair trade on campus, meet their needs. One really great thing that actually fits in really nicely with this second section of the guide, which is working with the food service provider. One thing that has been really helpful for a lot of folks is align fair trade in some way to the sustainability commitments already set by these dining service operators. So every single one of these, they have a sustainability site on their website. So you can go in, look at their sustainability goals, look at their commitments to responsible sourcing or environmental sustainability, whatever that looks like for that specific operator, And all of these are linked in the guide as well, just so you know. Look at all of those, see where fair trade might fit in, even if the guide doesn't specifically say fair trade in it, or sorry, if the sustainability commitment doesn't specifically say fair trade. We know that fair trade helps with environmental sustainability. We know that it's moving forward sustainability plans in that way. We know that it's a responsible way to source food or products or whatever that might look like. So dive in a little bit into their sustainability plans and see how you can make that connection for them. And then, like I said, the last part of the guide is a case study with UC Berkeley, UCLA, and the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point, just talking about how they worked with their independent food service operators. I'm not going to go into that today, but like I said, I put the resource in the chat so you can look at it, and you can always find it on our resources page as well. So that's just a little overview of working with dining. I would say main key takeaways from this that I think are really important is understanding what fair trade is and being able to articulate that to dining service providers when you talk to them, and also relating fair trade to their pre-existing sustainability commitments, I think, are two of the most important things that you can do in order to partner best with dining services. All right, I will pass it on to Anissa to talk over a couple of early semester best practices so that you can move forward quickly in the new school year.
Thank you, Taryn. So welcome to the new semester and happy fall, everyone. Kind of looking at what we're going to hopefully start doing for the semester. One of the first things hopefully is creating a timeline. So what are the goals that you want by the end of this school year? And then starting from there and figuring out how are we going to specifically reach them, and who and everyone needs to be involved for this team to be able to meet those timelines. So really just creating that timeline and planning out so that you can achieve those goals by the end of the semester and the school year. We're also going to be looking at how we can expand the community. I know one of the things that we've been seeing with the different campaigns is there's different turnover, there's a lot of changes from school year to school year. So figuring out who are the people in those offices that we want to continuously collaborate with, what are those other clubs on campus that you might want to collaborate with and get involved in the campaign to kind of spread the fair trade message. And we're also looking at who is the lead this year, and if that person is a senior, who will be taking over after them. So in terms of figuring out what are the plans for this school year, if you're not designated yet, I know designation is something that you're definitely looking forward to and hoping to achieve. So how are you going to reach out to those steps? And please make sure to schedule a call with your Fair Trade Fellow if you have any hiccups or questions along that process as well. So we're all here for you, but really just focusing on having those goals, creating those timelines, and reaching out to those key people that are going to help you kind of push the fair trade movement and message forward, and not just using people in your school and your community, but also those personal connections that might be able to help and kind of reach and spread that message within your broader community than just to the university and school.
I'll just add one thing to that successful turnover piece. I would suggest if you are graduating or if you're moving away from campus this next year, find somebody to take over your campaign starting ASAP. Like if you can get somebody that's interested in taking over the campaign for next year, talk to them now, have them shadow you for this first semester, or have them shadow you for this first semester, and then let them kind of take on a little bit of a leadership role in second semester so that you have the opportunity to kind of see how they do in a leadership role and give them any tips that you might have as they work through it. I think this is something that we don't have enough really great resources on. So I just wanted to give that little bit of a tip. Have them start now, have them start shadowing you as an organizer now, so that in the future, they're fully prepared to take on the campaign when you leave. And I think Angie is going to talk to us a little bit about the goals.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to fall semester. So we really want you to start off on the right foot and goal setting. So we're going to do a quick overview of the designation process just for those who are in startup and in progress status. So first up, we have building your team. This is great to get ahead of at the start of the semester because there are activity fairs and students really want to get involved. The Fair Trade Committee consists of students, faculty, and staff members, and you just work together to plan out events, monitor progress, and lastly, pass a fair trade resolution. Our goal is to recruit at least 5 committee members, including 1 non-student. Next is to reach out to campus outlet. This is great for the working with dining services and to view the Dining 101 guide. If you have any questions about this goal, please ask during our open discussion. Our goal is to ensure a minimum of 2 fair trade products are available in all campus owned and operated venues. Our third portion of the designation process is enrolling offices and catering. So at the start of the semester, it is a great idea to reach out to catering just to ensure that fair trade products are used in campus offices and departments and on campus run meetings and events when possible. Our goal is to provide at least 3 examples of campus offices and departments and campus run meetings and events that use fair trade products. Lastly is commit to fair trade education and events. This is great for when your tabling comes to place. So we want to raise awareness of fair trade on your campus through educational events and other activities. And our goal is a minimum of 4 activities per year. Lastly is passing a fair trade resolution. So developing a fair trade resolution includes necessary commitments from the institution, just that you'll continue delivering on goals. The goal is just to make sure that it is passed by appropriate decision bodies. And then we have our Fair Trade 101 guide and toolkit. It's great for tabling. It includes fast facts, how fair trade works, what fair trade does. And it has fair trade premium products such as CoSorsa, a coffee cooperative in Colombia. And they invested in building a lab to empower farmers to understand and improve the quality of their coffee and ultimately fetch higher prices. Then something a little fun is to order your bulk products now. So you can show your support for fair trade with the vibrant collection that Fair Trade certified branded merchandise. It's a simple way to proudly display your support of fair trade movements. The stickers are great to hand out on campus. They're great to put on the tables. They have these really cute sayings on them. I know I stick mine on my water bottle. And the information cards are great for tabling and sharing information. There are free items, and there are also items for a minimal fee, such as baseball caps and lanyards, and these are great for giveaways. And I do believe the link was just dropped in the chat for those.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Angie. And a reminder, like as you're working through these goals, if you haven't completed them yet, right now is the best time to really get started. And folks that are new on campus are looking to make friends. They're looking to join clubs. They're looking to do something that feels like they're making a difference. Especially so many young adults, it's the first time that they're really feeling free and able to make their own decisions. And fair trade is a really great way to get folks involved. And a lot of people are really love the message of fair trade, of course. So utilize this early semester to get folks on your team and to help them complete the goals if you haven't already, or if you're already a designated campaign, have folks help you move forward. What can you do that's more exciting than just maintaining the goals or doing 1 or 2 events a year? What can you do to really make a big fair trade impact on campus?
Thank you guys for that presentation. And we'll get started with the discussion section. But before that, if anyone has any questions about partnering with dining or anything that we just mentioned in the presentation, we'd be happy to answer them now. And if you have any questions, you can always pop them into the chat as well. All right. With that, we'll just get started with the discussion questions just to start us off, and then we can turn that into a conversation. So if anyone would like to share, how has your experience been with partnering or trying to partner with dining so far?
I'll step in. I know I'm the Eastern Region Fellow, but I also help out on the St. John's University campaign, and we haven't really done anything with dining. That connection and relationship isn't really there. So if anybody wants to share about how they started that relationship, I know I personally would love to hear.
Hi, this is Jen Jones from Seton Hill. I was really glad that you're having this webinar tonight because I feel like this is our biggest hurdle. And I feel like every time I fill out the survey at the end of the year, it's always something that I bring up with the challenge with dining services. We have Aramark, and I will say that, so I don't want to be, all negative about it. But something that we've done successfully is my university does a good job at actually growing its own food. We are founded by the Sisters of Charity, and the sisters, in coordination with our dining services director, have planted acres and acres of crops, and the sisters and the students go out and work the land. And so in our dining hall, all of our mashed potatoes are potatoes that were grown, zucchini, corn, onions, other things like that. And it also supports the Sisters of Charity retirement community, as well as our local food bank. So it's a really, really strong and great initiative. Now, the director of Aramark, the food service director who collaborated with the sisters, he has just, after, working, I think 25 years in that position, he's now moved to work as the director of sustainability at Seton Hill. And so I'm really hoping, and I would love to share this call with him, so that maybe he can hear some ways, and he can be that great conduit, since he has that incredible experience with Aramark. But I just, I've been told that we have fair trade coffee and tea, but then whenever I'm at the dining hall, that's not what I'm seeing. And I feel like it's always the response is, well, we're limited based on what Aramark can offer. So I don't know if anyone has any other comments about, what they've done with Aramark or any of their other partners.
That's amazing. So I'm so glad that you guys have been able to find a way to grow your own food. And it seems like it's a very strong initiative, as you said. And you actually brought up a really good question that I was going to ask. Has anyone else had experience trying to get products on campus? And if it's been successful, how have you been able to make it successful? Or have you had issues like Jen ensuring that there are fair trade products on campus?
I can jump in and talk a little bit about Aramark in particular. So unfortunately, it sounds like they're kind of they might just not be interested. They might just not want to take on the extra work. We know that Aramark has fair trade products in their catalog. And I just pulled up a report of all of our Aramark campuses, and we only have about 15 right now, but many of them are designated. And one of them is Arizona State University, which is one of the largest universities in the country. So if they are capable of sourcing, large quantities of fair trade products. It seems like you all should be able to as well, and especially just looking at tea and coffee, like that's one of the easiest and the most low cost products to source. I would love if at any point you wanted to include me on a call, Jen, with somebody from dining services to talk a little bit more, or I can make those connections with the Arizona State campaign or somebody else who might be closer in your area. I can dig a little bit deeper and see if there's any other Aramark campaigns near you. I would be more than happy to do that. Did anybody else want to add anything? Have you worked with dining in any capacity, or have you had any issues, any successes? Well, Michaela just put in the chat, Fordham also uses Aramark, so she would be interested in continuing that dialogue. Did you want to say anything or stick to the chat?
I am semi new to Fordham's kind of implementation into fair trade. You had mentioned earlier about the importance of kind of choosing a predecessor before you graduate. Unfortunately, last year it was a little bit later than I would have liked, so I'm still kind of getting up to speed on like different precedents that we've set in the past and all of that. So I'm not really sure about how Fordham's approached it. I know that we have an Aramark representative, but I also know that it's an uphill battle between university dining services and nutrition and Aramark, which is a huge organization, as you know. One of the, and this is probably not a conversation for right now, but one of the things that students continuously bring up or have brought up to me since I've become the president of my club is just Aramark's how they handle the labor practices for their employees. It's not directly a part of fair trade, but as a fair trade university who partners with Aramark, there is a lot of tension that between Fordham's administration and the university on how we handle that. So with the rest of my board, we've kind of just been brainstorming about like, how do we handle that? How do we make an action plan? Even though it's not necessarily under our jurisdiction, it is something that kind of is. But that's something that I've been thinking about in terms of dining.
Yeah, thank you for that input. Well, definitely, did you mean like people on like Aramark workers on campus? There's been contention there? Or like where they're sourcing the food?
Mostly the employees.
Okay.
The past few years there's always a COVID excuse with understaffing and things like that, but as we've been on campus, like students have just noticed it's pretty much the same staff in every dining location, like 24/7. And there's just been a lot of tension with how Fordham and Aramark partner with different places to like hire their employees, and how they treat their employees has been kind of a point of tension and frustration for students.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, that's a really important piece that I don't think we talk about enough, like being so focused on fair trade specifically. I think fair trade campaigns especially is generally thinking global, right? We're not really thinking about, we do encourage folks to like buy local and support local causes and things like that, but local labor I think is super important, and I would love to talk with you a little bit more about that and see at any point, if Fordham, if ever you all start coming up with ways to interact with administration to hopefully make those things better. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that and how you all move forward as a community. I'll just say one more thing about Aramark and see if anybody else wants to chime in, but I just pulled up their sustainability like impact report and sustainability plan, and their strategy, they have goals that are supported by 4 priorities, which align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And this is a really important thing. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, but they're a call for action by countries across the world to promote prosperity while protecting the planet. And there are, I think it's 18 goals, don't quote me on that. And I'll just say, so Aramark is aligning with those goals, and Fair Trade USA, Fair Trade Certified, who is the parent organization of fair trade campaigns and the program, they actually also align with the Sustainable Development Goals. And I just dropped a link there, which has a little bit of more of an explanation on how we align with them so closely. And there are 6 SDG areas that we promote direct and meaningful impact towards. So that could be something if, you know, Jen or Michaela, you end up in a conversation with Aramark folks and they're saying, well, it doesn't really align with what we're doing. This is a really direct way that it aligns through the Sustainable Development Goals. And since I'm still kind of on the topic of specific operators, I do just want to say, if any of y'all are part of a Chartwell's campaign or Chartwell's campus, you shouldn't have any trouble. They actually made a commitment to fair trade and are working on getting a lot of their campuses that they work on fair trade designated. So if anybody works with Chartwell's, they're really wonderful at providing, you know, they all already have fair trade tea and coffee. I think, I know Yadira, who's on the call, she's part of a fair trade campaign that works through Chartwell's, and it's definitely easier for those folks. So hopefully some of you are part of a campus that has Chartwell's, and that will make things a little bit easier as you move forward.
Yes, I got a little shy when I heard Aramark because, you know, the whole rivalry, but honestly, just getting rid of all that tension. So my name is Adira. Hello, everyone. Yes, I am a sustainability supervisor here with Texas A&M. We have Chartwell's. I know, if I may ask, so is it Jen, is Mitch from Fordham University? You both have Aramark, correct?
Yes, I do.
Is anyone else here in the call? Do they know what dining services they have for their schools? Maybe they're just chiming in. Okay, it's just to get a good idea of the audience here. So I'm just gonna, oh, we have Sedesto. Oh, nice. Yeah, I have not worked with Sedesto, but just to give a perspective, because so I'm like everyone else here. I imagine we're all students here. We're all wanting to get fair trade here. I was lucky enough, I was brought into the dining services when I was a student. I was an intern and then became a full-time. I'm literally about to complete 1 year as a full-time here this past August. So just then doing that. So I share the struggle when it comes to getting dining service, just to pay attention to you. And honestly, I want to just send a, like, let's say an insider, like maybe in new ways of going around it. So when it comes to Aramark, when it comes to the Sedesco, when it comes to Chartwell's, right? So we are working for the university, correct? So this initiative with fair trade, it has to come through the university somehow. And I'm wondering if anyone would like to chime in as well. Has anyone reached out to your Office of Sustainability? Anyone internal with the university? Has there been any, let's say, movement with them tagging along? Oh yes, we want to be a fair trade campus. Let's go to our dining provider and let them know, hey, this is a requirement for the university.
I can just chime in here. I go to University of California, San Diego, and our fair trade campaign is under the Student Sustainability Coalition. And through them, because they're a campus organization, the Fair Trade campaign has been able to ensure that we have that our supplier, who I'm not sure of, but we're able to ensure that we have fair trade products in our dining halls, coffees and teas mostly. But I agree that with Yajira that having a student organization that works with the school or the campus sort of support the campaign in having supplier have fair trade products on campus, that makes it a lot easier than just trying to, as a campaign, reach out to the supplier yourself.
Yeah, just to give a little more of a much more higher bang. So so the way Aramark sees fair trade or any new initiative, right? It's fairly new, fair trade. It's not required, right? It's all about meeting those requirements, the relationship between the dining services and the university, right? So I'm sure you guys already know there's a contract, right, that's involved. So within that contract, where that dining services is required to meet certain goals. And if fair trade is somehow, sustainability somehow like pushed into that contract, then boom, that's one thing, but that takes a longer route. And I like how you mentioned, I don't know if it was mentioned before, but I liked how looking up your dining services, so knowing their sustainability goals, knowing whether they meet with the UN sustainability goals, that is your key as well. Because let's say with Airmark, if they mention, what was it? Some of the UN sustainability goals, I believe. If they mention that, use that, bring that to the table, because they can't really say no if they have it right there on their sustainability report. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of
And
a,
yeah, go for it. Yeah.
no, you can go ahead, Yadira.
Oh no, honestly, that's fine. You're good.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's kind of another thing, like going into these conversations as if they're an interview, right? Preparing to answer their questions beforehand and doing your research beforehand, right? Like you wouldn't go in, well, you shouldn't go into a job interview like not knowing anything about the business or the organization. And I've hired a few people, and some of the best interviewees that I've had are people who like I knew that they looked through the website to get some of their information, or to say, oh, I noticed this on the website. Here's some information, or here's what I know about it beyond what was just on your website, that kind of a thing. So it really is kind of like going into it like an interview, and thinking about it in that way, and seeing how you can impress them with your knowledge and your understanding, and hoping that they like you enough to move forward and not give you any trouble. Because we do know that all of these, at least these four, we can't really speak to independent dining service providers. However, I will say that the majority of our campaigns, of our CU campaigns, are run through independent food service providers. So it does happen. But all of these, oh, I lost my train of thought now. All of them have fair trade products in their catalog. We know that. Like if they're telling you they don't, then maybe it's out of the price range, or maybe again they like don't want to put in the extra work to find those products or something like that. But we do know that they are available. It's just a matter of wiggling your way in enough that folks are willing to look into it a little bit deeper for you.
I'll add a quick little note right here that there are product lists on our website and guides. There's a lot of products that are fair trade that you and maybe your dining service might not realize is fair trade certified. So it's definitely a good thing to compare between their catalog and some of the items that maybe aren't, the most known fair trade brands, but are still fair trade certified.
Yeah, that's a really great call. I just put the product list in the chat, and I'll just add a reminder that, so Fair Trade Campaigns is run through Fair Trade USA and Fair Trade certified products, which will be little green and black label that you would probably recognize on products. But we also accept fair trade products from Fair Trade International, Fair for Life, and Fair Trade Federation. So we kind of open the floor a little bit more with this big tent approach, so that you're able to source more products through organizations that are not just our own. Just to give you a little bit more of an opportunity. And we trust these organizations, they're third party audited, just like Fair Trade USA is. And some Fair Trade USA and Fair Trade International factories and things even share the same factory. So we know that they're under the same standards and doing well. So I just wanted to throw that little extra tidbit out there. And yeah, go to these meetings with some product ideas, like, oh, we know that this campus utilized, this specific brand of fair trade coffee or something like that, and see if you can move forward in that way with some specific examples.
I will add on a little bit to Taryn's point here that it is super easy to see what products other schools are using on their webpage. So if you're in the Eastern region, maybe looking up a different campus around your area and see what they have in their dining services, and it could bring inspiration for you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for that tip. We also have on our Fair Trade Campaigns Instagram a lot of different college and university campaigns that we're following. So you can also look through there to see some resources, because oftentimes these campaigns will share the products that they have in their dining halls and just a lot of other really great resources. And I believe that the Instagram has been added into the chat, so you can check out our social media there. And with that, I'll just transition to, and then also there's a list of social media handles for the other fair trade campaigns. With that, I'll just transition into another question focusing on administration. So has anyone here had experience working with other student organizations, perhaps even student government, and administration? And if so, what has your experience been like?
Angelique, did you all ever get your resolution passed through SGA, through student government?
So at St. John's University, we have our own fair trade committee. We're not a part of like a different organization, a sustainability club. So we tried to go through our student government to become our own recognized committee under student government. And unfortunately, they did not approve that. They said it was because we were too self-sustaining, that we had enough people on our committee that they didn't feel like they needed I think they used the term like manpower of student government to formalize our committee. So no, we are not part of student government. We are just our own fair trade committee with faculty members, students, and staff.
That's another really great tip, though. Even though it didn't work out for you all, unfortunately, something super important with turnover and campaign permanency is getting yourself housed into a standing entity on campus. So whether that's student government, whether that's a sustainability office, in Yadira's case, they're run through dining. So it's in a space where the campaign will stay alive even as the people cycle through. So that's a really great point that you brought up. And I'm sorry it didn't work out for you, but maybe another time you can try again sometime in the future. But I had something to say to your initial question, Natalie. When it comes to passing the resolution, you might know, if you haven't done it yet, it needs to be passed through the president or the chancellor of the university. However, maybe not most, but a lot of campaigns will have it have the resolution signed through the student government first, just to show as a show of support from students for a campaign on campus. And that generally will make the resolution process when you take it to administration a little bit easier. So I just wanted to add that point in there. We're about 10 minutes from the top of the hour. I would love to open the floor one more time, see if anybody has any updates, questions, problems they've been running into. And if not, we can let you all go a little bit early and take some extra time for yourselves this evening. Jen is asking in the chat if it's easy to identify fair trade products in dining services catalog. I think generally no. I'm not super familiar with like sort of the back end of dining and how they go about that, but I could put you in contact with somebody from Fair Trade USA, actually, Jen, who works specifically with food service providers in sourcing products. So she would be a great person to talk to. And I can even get that information and send it in follow up as well, but good question.
Yeah, and before we finish off and wrap up, we would like to ask one more question, sort of related to fair trade campaign events, such as this one. And we were curious, what were obstacles or maybe factors preventing, if this is your first event, or if this is one of your first couple events, if there were any things that were perhaps preventing you from joining previous fair trade campaign calls, and if so, what we could do to overcome them. And yes, overcome them. I just saw a question in the chat, but that would be our last question. What we could do to help overcome those issues, for example, more outreach, or perhaps a different call or event time.
I'll also add on a little bit to Natalie's question is if you have anything that you're struggling with that you think other campaigns would struggle with and that would benefit from a strategy call, feel free to always send us ideas. Your regional fellows like myself are there for you. So if you think it's an issue that might even be a college and university issue, feel free to drop ideas for the next strategy calls.
Yes, definitely. We're always looking for new ways to make our calls more accessible to campaigns. We know sometimes the times that we do the calls don't work for everyone, especially in the different time zones. But yes, as Angelique said, if you have any recommendations, you can tell us here, or you can always shoot us an email. Oh, we're in the middle of transitioning student leadership. Yeah, that's something that a lot of campaigns have been dealing with, having to do with the transition, finding new leaders, maybe new members. So definitely, it's something that we've been seeing a lot of campaigns struggle with. And a tip that we mentioned earlier was just really focusing on finding new leadership early in the year. So even during now, like during the fall quarter or the fall semester, it might seem pretty early, but this is actually a pretty good time to try to find some new leadership. And that way, as mentioned earlier, they could shadow the current leadership. And yeah, we'll just start wrapping up.
I
Yeah.
actually have one suggestion for Katie, just because I struggled with this at St. John's too. I've was a student leader, so once I was a graduating senior, I needed to find somebody to take over the campaign. And I looked to clubs that had similar, I guess, goals as to fair trade. So people from Earth Club, the Sustainability Committee, there was also a Sustainability Club. So anything that kind of had to do with environmental sustainability, anything that kind of had that very similar goal at the end of the day, I looked to them, and a lot of those members came over and didn't necessarily join the committee, but they show up to meetings, and it's a great way to funnel in new students who care about fair trade and care about the environment. So I try to look outwards into similar clubs to see if you can get any student manpower.
All right, and with that, we'll start wrapping up. Is there anything else that anyone would like to share before we finish? Anything that any of the fellows would like to share? Okay, and we will send a follow-up with any toolkits and resources that we mentioned in the call. And we encourage you guys to reach out to us if you have any questions or recommendations for the next events. And yes, with that, we'll close it out. Thank you so much for coming, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.